Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. This is part 2 of the South Africa drama. If you missed part 1 where we discussed the first portion of the trip and Meghan's super cringy speeches, I'll link it for you. And be sure to subscribe so you do not miss part 3 coming up next, where we're taking a look at her outfits in a special fashion edition. On paper, it was great. It was clearly planned out really well and nicely. There were a lot of carefully organized events, but Harry and Meghan's speeches, drama, rogue interviews, and sudden press rage really blew the entire trip, completely ruined it. We left off after analyzing her speeches and a review of the tour events themselves, as well as the final moment of their tour in which Harry insulted the press. I think a lot of the tense pictures and moments throughout the tour that we saw, especially of Prince Harry, were because he knew something was coming on the last day of the trip. He and the Meg were announcing some nonsense, and I think he was tense over it. You can see it on his face a lot, and people notice that he just wasn't in the moment. He wasn't himself on this trip. But she, on the other hand, is still going through the motions, like pretending it's all fine, which you could interpret one of two ways. That she's an actress, so she's just playing the part, or that she's completely unbothered by the impending announcements. She's not stressed out by them. She's glad of them, which is kind of dark. If you don't know what announcements I'm referring to, well, it's Prince Harry's passive-aggressive or directly aggressive statement about the press, which was way off base, and we'll look at that in a moment, but also the Meg's lawsuit was announced. And I believe this is the lawsuit that she eventually won. But announcing it on the final day of the tour was really, really gross. It took away from the tour. It robbed those causes and organizations, communities, and everybody who put in time and effort for this tour from the headlines. It took them completely out of the headlines and took all the attention away from the tour itself and put it on Meghan and her lawsuit and on Harry's tantrum. All the credit for the tour and having just completed this big, huge undertaking on a positive note was completely thrown out the window. It wiped it from everyone's minds. Nobody cared. Press ran with the announcements from the petulant Sussexes, not anything to do with the tour at that point. It was very sad, very poor taste, and the Queen was especially disappointed. It was horrible. It was genuinely horrible behavior. So let's take a look at these announcements. This article, written at the time, reads, Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, has taken the unusual decision to sue the publisher of the Mail on Sunday after the newspaper published a handwritten letter she had sent to her estranged father. The decision came as Prince Harry launched an extraordinary and highly personal attack on the British tabloid press and its treatment of his wife, saying he could no longer be a silent witness to her private suffering. Emphasizing his respect for the importance of objective, truthful reporting, he accused parts of the media of waging campaigns against individuals with no thought to the consequences, and compared the treatment of Meghan to coverage of his mother, Princess Diana. The Duke said his deepest fear is history repeating itself. There comes a point when the only thing to do is to stand up to this behavior because it destroys people and destroys lives. Put simply, it is bullying, which scares and silences people. We all know this isn't acceptable at any level. We won't and can't believe in a world where there is no accountability for this. Incredibly ironic coming from the bullies themselves, who literally have spent years bullying other people. Super weird. A lot of people think that this big tantrum and this big shift towards saying, we're going to go after the press is because they knew that the bullying report about Meghan Markle was going to be coming out. So they needed to start making it clear to the public that the press was lying and manipulating about the Sussexes, to try to create distrust in what was being said in the media. In the event that these bullying reports came out, they could deny it and have at least some people believe it because they had kind of laid the foundation for saying that there was unfair and untrue stuff in the press when there really wasn't. But it also came across super weird because Meghan and Harry had just had 10 days of incredibly positive press. So it was extra tone deaf to release it when he did, after having gotten so many positive headlines. He continues, I've seen what happens when someone I love is commoditized to the point that they are no longer treated or seen as a real person. I lost my mother, and now I watch my wife falling victim to the same powerful sources. And again, this is super out of touch. There is no comparison. Diana was hounded by the press. They were surrounding her car and swarming her all over the place all of the time. However, never, not even once, have we seen anything remotely similar with Meghan Markle. It's just not the same. And at this particular time, the press was being super nice and super careful. I think that even though there was a lot of criticism leading up to the trip, which was warranted, people still did recognize that this is her first time back from maternity leave. Perhaps we can just let all that stuff be water under the bridge, bygones be bygones. Fresh start was kind of the vibe that everybody was hoping for at this point. A lot of people I spoke to said perhaps she'll sort of calm down now that she's had a child. It has a way of putting things into perspective of what's really important, and people grow, or mature. But clearly that was not the effect that it had on Meghan and Harry. Some of the media coverage that had been critical of the couple included their use of private jets, refusal to allow media coverage of the christening of their baby son Archie, or to name his godparents publicly. They were also criticized for the $2.4 million cost from the public purse for renovations at their Windsor home, Frogmore Cottage. The royals have limited ability to stop the publication of such stories, which prompted the decision to focus on the publication of Meghan's letter to her father, because they didn't have any other grounds for lawsuits. These are factual criticisms and basically just reporting on the different or perhaps negative behaviors of Harry and Meghan. Harry said that the recent positive coverage of their African tour exposed the double standards of this specific press pack that has vilified her almost daily for the past 9 months. They have been able to create lie after lie at her expense simply because she has not been visible while on maternity leave. She is the same woman she was a year ago on our wedding day, just as she is the same woman you've seen on this Africa tour. For these select media, this is a game, and one we have been unwilling to play from the start. So it would seem that he felt that the positive coverage of Meghan on the tour, or just of them on the tour, was hypocritical because these people were criticizing other actions, which is a really immature and close-minded view of things. You can criticize certain decisions that somebody makes while also acknowledging something good that they have done. There's no reason why the press cannot report on questionable choices the Sussexes made, like all the private jets and not letting people have any sort of access to the christening, or being dodgy about Archie's birth. There's no reason why press shouldn't be able to criticize that and offer positive criticism or positive reporting on something that was genuinely positive, like this tour. It makes no sense. Things are not concrete, binary, either you're going to report exclusively negative or exclusively positive on someone. That's not how things work. But it would appear that that's how Harry wanted it to work. A royal commentator and public relations expert was speaking about this and said, Harry and Meghan's trip had all the hallmarks of being a historic success until Meghan launched a privacy lawsuit against the Mail on Sunday on its last day. The Sussexes were representing the Queen in a Commonwealth country. This was no way to conduct matters, placing self over duty so publicly, and it was also totally unprecedented. Had they not used it climatically for personal purposes, this 10-day tour of Southern Africa would have gone down as a historic success, with memorable events such as taking their son Archie to meet the iconic Archbishop Desmond Tutu and Harry retracing his mother's footsteps in an Angolan minefield. It was an extraordinary own goal. Another royal watcher said the timing of the interview ruined the goodwill generated from the tour. Exactly right. On the tour, Prince Harry lashed out at a reporter. She was an experienced reporter and had previously had no problems asking Prince Harry questions as he exited a venue, and on this occasion she tried to do the same thing, called doorstepping in the industry. He doesn't stop and give me a full interview, but he acknowledges me. This one played out quite differently. In Malawi, the journalist was filmed asking the Duke about his work, a question which he ignored at first. As she insisted, he turned towards her and said, "What? Ask them." But after Mills asked another question, Prince Harry became angry and told her, "Don't behave like this." Although from the outside it might seem difficult to understand what happened there, Mills has a clear perspective on the situation now. Most people looked at it and thought, well, hang on, it was a polite question. Why did it blow up? But looking back at it now, I had basically kicked the wasp's nest. This was a really weird scenario. You're literally there to answer questions to reporters, to try to generate news articles, to bring attention to the organizations and communities, as well as the relationship from the UK to the Commonwealth. It is part of the job to get press and to involve the press. Otherwise, why do the tour at all? It's needed to raise awareness and to show progress and to show where support is actually going from the monarchy. Without the press, no one would know. People would wonder what is actually being done. The reason why the Meghan Markle lawsuit, Prince Harry's attack on this reporter, and Prince Harry's attack on the press altogether in his angry rage statement, as well as his just unkind, sort of prickly actions towards the press throughout the entire tour, didn't sit well with people, including the Bradby interview, which we'll talk about in a moment, is completely clear and understandable. They were working on behalf of the Queen, and they used the tour to whine, to launch their self-centered attacks. And it completely undermined the tour and overshadowed it when it came to the press. Furthermore, it just shows how selfish they are. The work and the causes, South Africa and the diplomacy, all out the window. They made the tour all about themselves by doing this. It was super gross behavior. Reactions at the time, again, included completely fair criticism. She could have done that interview from home and not spent £250,000 to travel there for it. The trip itself was a positive one. It was well received on a daily basis, making positive headlines for the work they did on behalf of the government. That said, the absurd timing of their unwanted attack on the press and the negative headlines that followed overshadowed all the positive work that was put in. They took 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. And if that wasn't enough, in true Sussex style, they rehashed more drama from the South Africa trip years later. Typical. Now, of course, we know that she completely overreacted or fabricated some sort of crazy story, which she told on Archetypes, that they were in a housing unit, which that alone, right off the bat, was insulting. It was actually an official residence, a really, really fancy place, and it was insulting to the host country to make it sound like something less nice. A housing unit certainly doesn't represent this accommodation that they had. And she said that a heater caught fire in Archie's room when he wasn't in the room. Like, when she told this story, she opened with, there was a fire in Archie's room and we were still expected to go out and do engagements. But eventually, as she continues talking, it unfolds that it was just a smoking heater. They unplugged it and it was fine. There was no actual fire or flame, and Archie was not in the room at all. Was it terrifying? I'm sorry, but if Meg finds that terrifying, it just goes to show how cush her life is. That was so not a big deal, that event. But she talks about it like it was this huge problematic big deal. She complained that she had to go and continue to do events and attend events. I mean, if she really didn't want to go, I'm sure they could have said that she chose to stay home with the baby and was skipping the event. Yes. At the same time, £250,000 were spent just getting them to South Africa. This 10-day tour was a big deal. It's not like they were going to go back on tour within the next couple of months or return to South Africa anytime soon. It was her one chance to show up. So yeah, you'd be expected to go ahead and still go to work since everybody was fine and nothing actually happened. There was no trauma involved in this event. She also complained that she was advised not to talk about it. Why would that be weird? It would be super weird to mention it and talk about it and be like, there was a heater that started smoking, so we unplugged it. That's not newsworthy. So of course she was advised not to talk about it, but she acted like that was a problem. So imagine if in real time she had overreacted and people were like, dude, calm down. Then maybe that's where Harry started getting his sour face on. That he felt like people were being dismissive of Meghan, or maybe Meghan told Harry she was being treated in a dismissive manner, when really she was overreacting. If she caused a big stink over the alleged smoking heater, which many point out was even unneeded in that time of year because they had warm temperatures, maybe she was just trying to get moved to a fancy hotel or something. But perhaps she made some sort of conflict occur where she could have complained to Harry, and maybe that's why he was so furious. Who knows? In the documentary, Bradby asked the Duchess of Sussex how she's coping with the lack of privacy and ruthless tabloid rumors as a new parent, to which the former American actress replied she takes each day as it comes. I think the grass is always greener, said Markle. You have no idea. It's really hard to understand what it's like. I know what it seems like it should be, but it's a very different thing. Markle said she and Harry have had conversations about being in the spotlight and all the negativity that comes with it. I have said for a long time to H, that's what I call him, it's not enough to just survive something. That's not the point of life. You have to thrive. You have got to feel happy. I really tried to adopt this British sensibility of a stiff upper life. I think she meant lip. I really tried, but I think that what that does internally is probably really damaging. So again, this is demonstrating some really rather manipulative and insensitive comments right from the start. During the interview, Harry also appeared to give credence to long-standing rumors of a rift with William when he admitted the brothers had good days and bad days. They were following different paths. While many people pointed out at the time that Harry should have just said that that subject is off limits. By bringing in these sorts of comments way back at the South Africa interview, it's really clear that they had no problem right from the start throwing their own family under the bus. Harry made it seem like there was these conflicts going on, which even if they were, it's not something to air in an interview. Following the airing of it too, Prince William texted and called Harry to try to set up a meeting to come and talk to him in person, and Harry refused because he was paranoid that it would get out or that staff would find out. Once again, completely unreasonable and silly. It's as if Harry and Meghan were hell-bent on making sure nothing was going to work out at all, self-sabotaging to the extreme. The Bradby interview sent bad human vibes for sure, from Meghan Markle especially. This makes the case for never complain, never explain. It's doubly important in this instance because Harry and Meghan do not have the same struggles as 99% of the population. They simply do not have bills to worry about, electricity getting turned off in their apartment, laundry to do, chores to do, full-time jobs that don't pay enough, figuring out ways to make ends meet. These are just not struggles that Harry and Meghan have. So anytime they're giving out any kind of woe is me sorts of statements, it's going to be viewed much more harshly by the public, who are the people observing them. While mental health and physical health struggles are universal, when privileged, you still have to be extraordinarily careful about how you speak about those things, lest you come off how Meghan has, which is petulant, incredibly tone-deaf, and insensitive. The location of this talk was one of the poorest areas. And she stood there whining about how royal life was hard. It genuinely showed a complete lack of humanity. What perplexed me the most, or stood out to me the most, after seeing these people during her tour and speaking with them for 10 days, seeing their struggles firsthand and how hard they're working to solve these problems and get to solutions. Prince Harry meeting children who were victims of landmines. Truly tragic things, and also beautiful things. The perseverance of the communities to improve. After she spent nearly 10 days at this point, at the time that she said these words, that nobody's asked me if I'm okay, she had spent 10 days in these communities. She learned nothing. She took nothing in. She truly saw nothing. After experiences like that, any normal person would feel immense gratitude for what they have. The privileges that they have seem so much more intense when you see true struggle like this and challenges like these. It should be a complete perspective refresh doing something like this. What a privilege it is at all to get to go and see these places and travel to these areas and meet people and see the communities there. immerse in their culture and spend time in that part of the world is a beautiful experience on its own. And after 10 days of that and learning about the struggles and solutions that the communities are wrestling with, she's blind to the world around her. And she looked inward and complained about the press and how hard it is to be a new mother. What? It was abhorrent, astounding, and foolish. But to me, it's one of the most important moments in Meghan Markle's history. That none of that trip sunk in for her at all. It bounced right off her bronzer and she kept complaining. And that's really all you need to know about the Meg, that it was all meaningless in the face of her scorekeeping. Super weird. So it's clear that she and Harry were going on this trip and embarking on this trip, still butthurt that they were being outed in the press for their shenanigans. They were sour that the public had an interest in their child. Shocker. Completely shocking. They were butthurt that they were criticized for taking private jets all over the place while launching an eco-warrior initiative of Travelist. They were butthurt that the press was surprised and perhaps critical of some of these sorts of things. And instead of showing people that they can do a good tour and they can fill these roles and reach potential and reach expectations and represent the Queen well and put the communities and the Commonwealth above themselves, they decided to use it as a launching pad for their attacks on the press to try to get back at the press and the public for things that at that point were months old. And this is the exact same pattern we see continuing on with Harry and Meghan. Nothing gets put above them, there's no priority above their scorekeeping, and nothing sinks in to give them any degree of perspective. It truly made me feel bad for everybody who put effort into that tour. It takes so much planning, so much time. People clearly worked really, really hard. The journalists were there working hard too. And all of it got stomped on as Harry and Meghan threw a tantrum. But let me know what you thought of the South Africa trip and all of the drama that punctuated it. Please leave it in the comments below. I cannot wait to read your reactions, and perhaps we'll put out a comments review reaction video to how you guys felt about it and whether or not this was a big turning point for you and whether or not you liked Harry and Meghan and your support for them as a couple. Thank you so much for joining me for today's video. Again, don't forget to subscribe so you do not miss the fashion edition where we take a look at all the major fashion mistakes she made while on this trip. Thanks so much again. I hope you have a very happy day ahead. I'll see you next time. Bye!